All right, Namaste, Witchlings. Hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Go ahead and get settled in. We're going to do our digital housekeeping and say, please be mindful of the energy you bring into my space. You will be respectful in my chat, because if you are not, Arnold and the mods will be finding you with the banhammer.
Hasta la vista, baby.
All right. Oh, cool. Nice. Ooh, not bad. All right. Where are my earrings? There they are. All right. Oh, God. Many. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? All right, just a warning. We're going to hide the chat from me while I am talking, and then I will check in with the chat periodically. Just so y'all know. Thank you. All right. Okay, that bad? All right. Okay. Here we go. Let's get moving. Autism Acceptance, Harmful Narratives, and What It Means to Actually Listen. Tonight we call out Autism Speaks, reclaim neurodivergence, and shift into awakening after stillness, where real change starts with noticing, not fixing. So, Namaste, my witchlings. Welcome to the Bitchin Witch Podcast, where we talk about spirituality, history, politics, and culture without sugarcoating the gods be damned thing. I am Di the Yoga Witch, yoga teacher, witch, Navy veteran, wife, mom, and small business owner, and I am here to bring grounded fire, lived experience, and a whole lot of truth to the table. This is a sacred space where we question power, reclaim ourselves, and refuse to shrink to make other people comfortable. Let's get into it, shall we? It is Autism Acceptance Month, and Autism Acceptance Month isn't about awareness. It's about truth. We break down the harm of Autism Speaks, the myth of cure, and why autistic voices must be centered. At least during this month. So let's go ahead and get into it. Gonna take a sip and then we'll get into it. All right. April is what most people still call Autism Awareness Month. But I am going to be abundantly clear with you here. I am not interested in awareness. I am interested in acceptance. Because I'm autistic, as are my children. And I don't need people to discover that people like us exist. I need people to understand that we were never the problem to begin with. Now, I didn't grow up with language for this, and a lot of us didn't, especially those of us who didn't fit the very narrow stereotypical picture of what autism is supposed to look like. So instead, what we got was, you're too much. You're too sensitive. Why are you like this? Just act normal. And you start to internalize that shit. You start to believe that there is something fundamentally off about you. Not just different, wrong. And then you grow up. Oh no, what? Okay. And then you grow up and you start seeing the messaging out in the world. Organizations, campaigns, fundraisers. And one of the loudest voices in that space has been Autism Speaks. And I am going to say this plainly. That organization did real harm to people like me. Because the message wasn't, hey, here are ways to support autistic people. The message was, this is a tragedy. This is something to fix. This is something to cure. And let me tell you what it feels like being on the receiving end of all of that. It feels like being told that your brain, the way you think and feel and experience the world, shouldn't exist. That if someone could wave a wand and erase it, they should. And I need people to really sit with that, because that is not abstract. That is identity. Autism is not something I caught. It is not something separate from me. It is literally how I process everything. It is how my brain works. It is woven into how I communicate, how I connect, how I understand patterns, and how I feel safety. So when the conversation centers around cure, what I hear is, you would be better if you were someone else. And no, we're not doing that anymore. Now, let's talk about something that honestly still just blows my mind. For a long time, and I am not sure if they currently have fixed this or not, but for a long time, Autism Speaks didn't meaningfully include autistic people in leadership. Let me repeat that for you. An organization speaking about people like me, without people like me having a seat at the table. I want you to imagine someone explaining your life to the world while you're standing right there, and they don't even ask you if they got it right. That is what it feels like and felt like, and it's what it still feels like at times. Because autistic people have been speaking, we've been writing and advocating, and we've been saying over and over, hey, this is not what we need. And over and over and over again, those voices got dismissed, minimized, treated like we didn't understand our own lived experience. And I forgot to make sure I had a name. Give me a second, because that is why organizations like ASAN, which is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, matter so damn much. Because their entire foundation is nothing about us without us. And honestly, that shouldn't be revolutionary. That should be baseline. Now I want to talk about the damn puzzle piece. Because I need you guys to understand why so many of us reject it. That symbol has been used to represent autism for years. But what it says, whether people realize it or not, is that we're missing something. We're incomplete. There's a piece of our puzzle missing. And that we are a problem waiting to be solved. And I am telling you, from the inside, that lands. It lands in the way people look at you and in the way you start looking at yourself. I am not missing. I'm not a missing piece. I am not a broken puzzle. I am a whole human being. And that right there is why so many of us resonate with the infinity symbol instead. Because this isn't about something being wrong. It's about range, variation, and complexity. And now let's talk about blue. Light it up blue, because every April, everything turns blue. And the reasoning behind that is autism is more commonly diagnosed in boys. But here's where it looks like from my point of view. It looks like people like me getting overlooked again. Because girls and anyone who doesn't present in that very, very specific stereotypical way, picture Rain Man, often don't get diagnosed. We get labeled something else. We get told we're dramatic or emotional or just difficult. We learn very early and very thoroughly how to mask, how to perform normal, and how to disappear parts and aspects of ourselves just to make other people comfortable. So, when the world says autism looks like this and paints it blue, it erases literally everyone who doesn't fit that image. So, many of us choose gold because AU. It belongs to us. Or a rainbow because spectrum. Because there is no one way to be autistic. That the saying goes, if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. Now, this isn't all just about symbols and campaigns. This is about what happens to people. People like me, people like my son, like my other kids. When you grow up being told either directly or indirectly that you are a problem to be fixed, you don't just shake that off. You carry it into your relationships, into work, into how you talk to yourself when things get hard. The burnout, the chronic anxiety, the constant second guessing, the exhaustion of just trying to exist in a way that doesn't feel natural just to be accepted by them. That's not support. That's survival mode. So here's where I stand. I am not broken. I do not need to be cured. And I am done entertaining narratives that treat neurodivergence like a defect instead of a difference. Autism acceptance means you listen to us, you believe us, you include us, and you stop trying to reshape us into something more comfortable for you, and you start creating spaces where we can exist as we are. Because I promise you, we are not the ones who need fixing. We really aren't. And if we were to take away the accomplishments of every autistic person throughout history, we'd lose a lot in art, in music, in science. We've always been here, and we don't need to be fixed. So, as we move through this month, I want you guys to sit with this. Where did your understanding of autism come from? And whose voice was missing from that story? Because awakening, real awakening, starts right there. With noticing and listening and being willing to realize maybe what I was taught wasn't the whole truth. We'll be right back in just a second. After our break, have an ad for you here. We're going to talk about what it actually looks like to listen before moving, and, well, how that applies to autism, and not just autism, but to how we relate to people, period. And now, my witchlings, let's take just a moment to visit theyogawitch.shop, where magic meets movement and everyday rituals get an upgrade. You will find handmade jewelry, cozy witchy merch, and plenty of treasures for you, and maybe even your familiar too. You can also book my services directly through the shop, including tarot and oracle readings, or house blessings when your space or your spirit needs a little extra care. And I am also an ordained minister who can perform weddings, baptisms, and funerals. So please wander in, explore just a little bit, and see what magic is waiting for you. Again, you can find that all at theyogawitch.shop. And now, if you are enjoying this podcast and you feel called to step just a smidge bit deeper into our coven, please go ahead and tap that join button and become a channel member. There are some amazing perks waiting for my witchlings with membership levels starting at just $1 a month. How affordable is that, y'all? And if membership isn't in the cards for you right at the moment, you can still support our channel here for free by subscribing and sharing this video with a friend. I appreciate you guys and all of your support. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Now let's get back to the show, shall we? All right. Yeah, let's check in with chat real quick. All right. All right, let's see. What is autism? Oof. Yes, Kelsey, the White House did say autism is a preventable disease, but RFK Jr. doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. What is autism? It is a neurodivergence. Oh, dude, I am autistic and ADHD, hence why I'm ranting today. Why wouldn't an autistic ADHD individual make a video or have a podcast episode talking about Autism Acceptance Month the day before Autism Acceptance Month starts? Why would an autistic woman be talking about what life is like as an autistic woman who was not diagnosed until I was 30-something, because autism wasn't diagnosed in girls when I was a kid. Neither was ADHD. It is Autism Acceptance Month, so why would a neurodivergent woman come on here and talk about living with neurodivergence? Why not? And no, I don't use my autism to sell a goddamn thing. I am talking to you about lived experience as an autistic person who happens to be a witch, happens to be a small business owner, happens to be a wife, mother, and Navy veteran. Why do you think I am lying about my own lived experience? As far as how do I feel about Temple Grandin? I think she's an interesting person. I know there are some issues with her, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. All right, now let's move on to the second half of our episode where we weave autism acceptance into waking up and becoming aware. All right, click. That was the wrong click. That was a click. After I take a drink. Now, my friends, awakening doesn't start with action. It starts with noticing. And this week's theme explores listening before moving, subtle energy, and what happens when we stop overriding ourselves. So let's bring this all into our nice little theme of the week. Am I missing something, babe? Thank you. All right, so let's bring this all into our theme of the week. Awakening after stillness, listening before moving, and subtle energy. Because here's the thing. For a lot of us, awakening didn't look like some big cinematic moment. It didn't come with clarity and fireworks and sudden understanding. It came quietly. It looked like, wait, that doesn't feel quite right. Why does this messaging feel off? Why am I exhausted all the time just trying to exist? That's what awakening looked like for me. Not answers, just more questions. Why am I weird? Why can't I be normal? What is wrong with me? And when I really started listening, not to what I'd been told about myself, but to my actual lived experience, things started shifting. Because I realized after my diagnosis that a lot of what I thought was wrong with me was actually just me trying to survive in environments that were not built for me. That's the subtle energy part. It's very much not loud and it does not demand attention, but once you notice it, you can't unnotice. And a lot of times this is where people get uncomfortable, because once you see it, you have to decide, do I keep forcing myself to fit something that hurts me, the whole square peg, round hole thing, or do I start honoring what I'm actually experiencing? Awakening isn't about having it all figured out. It's generally about just being willing to notice. Which is kind of interesting. Now, let's move on and talk about listening, because this is where so many people, especially in advocacy spaces, get it wrong. Because we are very quick to act, to fix, to respond, or to speak, which isn't always smart, but we are absolutely terrible at listening. Especially when what we are hearing challenges what we thought we knew. And autistic people have been saying this for years. This messaging hurts us. We don't need to be cured. And this is what support actually looks like. And unfortunately, instead of listening, a lot of people just double down because it's uncomfortable to realize you've been supporting something that caused harm. But here's truth. Listening doesn't require you to be perfect. It requires you to be willing. Listening before moving means you pause, you take in information without immediately reacting, and you let lived experiences exist without trying to reshape them into something that makes you more comfortable. And this isn't just about autism. This is about how we show up in all our relationships. Because how often do we do this? Someone tells us their experience, and instead of hearing them, we explain it, we correct it, or we just filter it through our own perspective. Friends, that's not listening. That's control. Listening says, I don't fully understand yet, but I'm here and listening. And that, my friends, is where real change starts. Now let's go a little bit deeper, a layer deeper, because this is where it gets really embodied. Subtle energy is the stuff that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not the big, obvious things. It's the small signals that your body is constantly sending you. So for me, and for a lot of autistic people, including the man behind the curtain, this shows up as sensory overload creeping in before I consciously register it. The low droning background noise, like the dog licking their paw or the cat drinking water out of the water bowl. And then we have the tension building because it's just enough to grate the nerves, but not fully register. So the tension building before I can name why, and then just being utterly and completely exhausted at the end of a day where I didn't do anything. So the exhaustion doesn't make sense on paper, so to speak. Because masking, which many of us learn to do, especially those of us assigned female at birth, disconnects you from that subtle awareness. Masking tells you, ignore what you're feeling, override what you need, perform something else. And you can do that for a while, but the cost? Burnout, disconnection, losing track of what's actually yours versus what you learned to perform. Awakening after stillness for me has looked like coming back to that subtle awareness, noticing, oh, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. Okay, I need quiet for a couple of minutes. Or, oh wow, that interaction drained me a little bit more than I was expecting. And instead of just pushing through, listening. Because subtle energy is honest even when it's inconvenient as hell. Isn't that lovely? So, what do we do with all of this? Because honestly, awareness without action just turns into frustration, doesn't it? Living this, actually embodying it though, doesn't require some massive life overhaul. It starts small. It starts like letting yourself just pause before you automatically say yes. Letting yourself step away before you hit burnout. Letting yourself exist without constantly editing who you are. And for those of you out there who are not autistic, neurotypical, this is your work too. Your work looks like believing people when they tell you what they need, not requiring them to prove their experience, and creating space instead of forcing conformity. Because acceptance isn't passive, it is active, and it's a series of choices over and over and over again. Now, I am not saying it's easy, because Goddess knows it rarely is easy to unlearn. But here's what I am saying. When you stop trying to force people into a mold, you get to actually meet them. And when I stopped trying to force myself into one, I finally got to figure out who I am. I got to meet myself. So let's check in with chat again. Thank you. I see a Mike. I see a Tori. Yes, we are talking about the fact that it is Autism Acceptance Month next month. Starts tomorrow. Being diagnosed with autism gave me the right to speak on it, but that's beside the point. Oh, that is awesome, Mike. Hey, Mikey. Great. Got Mike and Mikey. Masking. Yes. There we go. Tired of random assholes telling us what our lives mean. I don't know if you were here before Dad timed him out, but someone was asking me to prove that I was diagnosed autistic. How the without actually, publishing my medical records, how do you prove that you were diagnosed with autism? Okay. I love you, kiddo. You're the best. That is true. A lot of Gen Z and younger millennials don't know how to. Yeah, they don't know how to communicate. And the man behind the curtain has a point. That we're fairly convinced that autism is just the next step of evolution, and something that gets me. Yep. Something that gets me, as I said earlier, if we were to eradicate everybody who cure all of the autism and eradicate all of the all of the product of autism, we would be missing so much art. I mean, fuck. Van Gogh is thought to have been autistic, as was, I want to say, Mozart or Bach, one of multiple classical musicians. It's widely suspected that Edison and Tesla were autistic. Charles Dickens, I believe, is one of the authors. There's so many people in history. Einstein, who were suspected of being autistic, and so many musicians even today, and it just, I hate the fact that Autism Speaks wants to cure us. Yes, profound autism on the higher needs end of the spectrum. Exactly. As Anthony says, I have a neighbor that's autistic and has Downs, and he comes over when we're at the cabin and has me cook him dinner and make his eggs in the morning. I don't see a problem with it. He's still a human. Exactly. And the autism and Downs is not an... Thank you for utterly and completely derailing that train of thought, kid. Autism Speaks protect and speak for us like PETA speaks for dogs. Yeah. How do you prove an autism diagnosis? Seriously. Exactly, Mikey. My friend said to me, there's something you have to get off your chest. I don't know what to say, but he wanted to get something off his chest. What type of communication is this? I'm thinking he has a deep, dark secret that he wants to tell you, but he doesn't know if it's safe. Oh my good grief, my eye is now itching. Yeah, it may not even be that big a deal, but it's something important to him. Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how the fuck do you prove you're autistic? I mean, yeah, I'm at the low accommodation needs end. Oh, so Jorm, why do people give a fuck about the diagnosis? It is, for accommodations. Because without a diagnosis here in the States, if you have a diagnosis of autism or ADHD or any other disability that will affect your ability to work, you can request reasonable accommodations, such as someone with autism who has sensory processing issues. And gets overwhelmed by background noise quickly, we can get permission to wear things like loop earplugs in the workplace to help block out some of the background noise, but we're still able to hear what we need to hear. Or it can be something as simple as, that's true, as getting permission to take more frequent breaks because you get overstimulated and you just need to step back and take a breath for a minute. Those are some reasons for trying to get a diagnosis. And as I used to say, I want to be able to treat what's going on here, but without knowing exactly what we're treating. It's just slapping a Band-Aid on the symptoms and not dealing with the underlying cause. Because once I found out I was on the autism spectrum, that made so many aspects of my life make sense. I do not pick up social cues. I am very oblivious to social cues. I can be gullible as fuck. There is a reason my family used to joke that I was going to be the member of the family to get sucked into a cult. Go for it. Oh, nope. Mike took care of it. Thank you, kiddo. But that is why we go for the labels, because if you don't know what the fuck it is, you can't treat it properly. And that has been why I wanted to make sure that my kids were diagnosed with their stuff, because I wanted to be able to make sure they had the best start in life I could give them. I wanted them to be able to get a decent education, and without knowing what was putting speed bumps in their way, we couldn't remove the speed bumps. So I was once accused of label seeking for my kids until I pointed out that I know there is something going on here, but until I know what it is, I can't treat it. And I want to know so I can treat it and work with it. Didn't necessarily want to cure it. I just wanted to learn how to work with it and how to give my kids and me, when we found out that they got it from me and their father, that was the point. It was not me trying to be a perma victim. It was not me going wah wah wah. There's something wrong with me. No, I didn't want the fucking attention. It was definitely not Munchausen's by proxy, which I was also accused of. This was me wanting to be able to make our lives as easy as possible. I mean, why hinder yourself when you don't have to? And I honestly think that because I did do some of that stuff is part of why I'm where I am today, because I figured out how to work with my own neurodivergence. And my kids are all successful in their own ways right now in their 20s. And I'm very proud of the fact that we've done that. And they're doing things that help with their neurodivergence or the other issues that they have. And they've learned what kind of jobs and careers they can do that work with it, such as one of the kids, I'm not going to name names, has found the perfect occupation where they interact with people, which they absolutely love, but it's always short conversations and they move on to the next person, and they're doing their part to make people's days brighter. And that works for them. They are very well loved in their community and at their workplace. And it's great. I was not going to give details. But learning that Dad was saying not to, so I was trying not to. But yes, Mike is my example here. He has found the perfect job for him. He doesn't become overwhelmed by too much conversation at once. And it's great. Prompting what? Yeah. Oh, yeah. He has very, very clear prompt of this is what you do. This is what you need to do now, and keeps hands busier than brain. Yes. Exactly. And you have a very scripted routine. You have a scripted routine. When the customer comes up, you scan, you chat, you take care of what they're doing, and you move on. Which honestly is amazing, because so many of us with autism thrive on routines. And it's great. You are very much like your mother. I love customer service, but I hate dealing with people for any length of time. That's part of why I was so good at being Sprint Wireless customer service. But yeah, and then you get the ADHD thrown in there, and that is another form of neurodivergence. And we are living in a world that caters to the neurotypical, but at this point, neurotypical is becoming the neurodivergence. Mimi's behind again. It's all good. You're good, Mimi. I think Mimi got an ad and got held back. No, I am so not in my late 50s, friend. I am so not in my late 50s. I'm not even 50. And I never said I was in my prime. Hell no. It's good, Mimi. Yeah, no, we're not dealing with that here, so Han Solo. I have other issues with neurodivergence being more common than neurotypical. Feels like doctors are paid to meet. No, it's not so much that doctors are being paid to meet quotas. It's that we are finally noticing that neurodivergence is a spectrum. And there are more things to neurodivergence than just ADHD and autism. Don't ask me off the top of my head. I cannot remember them right now, but there are some. And I don't disagree that that they are being pushed. Oopsie. Oh yeah. Let's go ahead and all right. So I love my children. Miserable pile of secrets. That's a human being, kid. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up, and I'll come back and check in with the chat after we wrap up because I'm enjoying the conversation here. So this week, my witchlings. As we sit with awakening after stillness, I really want you guys to notice something. Number 1, where are you overriding yourself? Number 2, where are you not listening? 3, where are you moving too fast to actually understand what's happening? Just notice those things. You don't have to fix them today. You don't have to solve it. Just notice. Because that moment, that quiet, subtle shift, that's where awakening begins. So, my lovelies, spread love, spread joy, spread kindness. The world already has enough darkness. Let's be the ones who bring light without demanding people shrink to receive it. Tell your people, 2 legs, 4 legs, wings, fur, scales, that you love them. Tell them now. Time is not a strict progression of cause to effect. It is far more of a wibbly, big ball of wibbly, wobbly, timey-wimey stuff, and it moves a hell of a lot faster than any of us think, meaning those last chances to say I love you are not guaranteed, and the doctor can tell you all about that. And let me say this. If you take one thing from tonight, let it be this. You are allowed to question what you've been taught. You are allowed to outgrow narratives that never included you. You are very much allowed to listen to people whose lived experiences challenge your comfort and change because of it. If you are neurodivergent, like me, like my family, you're not broken. You were never missing anything. You were never missing pieces. You are not, by any means, a problem to be solved. What you are a human being whose way of moving through the world deserves understanding, not correction. And if you are not, your work is not to fix. It's to listen, to believe, and to create space where people don't have to fight just to exist. Awakening isn't loud. It doesn't always look like transformation. Sometimes it just looks like a pause. A moment where you realize, oh, there's more here than I thought. That moment, that is where everything begins. So this week, slow down. Listen before you move. Pay attention to the subtle signals in your body, your relationships, and in the spaces you move through. Because when we really and actually listen to ourselves and to each other, we don't just become more aware. We become more human. Spread love, spread joy, spread kindness. Be a beacon of light for those stumbling in the dark, not by forcing them to be like you, but by letting them be fully themselves in your presence. I love you guys so much, Witchlings. Have a fantabulously magical rest of your day or night wherever you are. Stay informed. Stay angry. Stay magical. Blessed be. And namaste, my witchlings.